So, before I get to discussion of the Dreammaker and Opah episodes of Land of the Lost, I want to just mention the news bulletin, the special news bulletin that scrolled across the screen as I was watching Dreammaker on YouTube on the app on my TV. But obviously, these episodes put on YouTube were recorded at an earlier time because these shows haven't been on TV in decades. 30 years, actually. Well, in this case, 29. Dreammaker originally aired on September 19th, 1992. And I pretty sure that this is from that original airing because the music that plays over the end credits is not the instrumental version of the Land of the Lost theme song. It's an ABC kind of commercial song, Everyone's Family at ABC or whatever. And so from that, I gather that when the news bulletin scrolled across the screen that said that NASA was delaying the landing of Endeavour, one of the space shuttles, until 8:53 a.m., and that ABC would start covering it at 8 o'clock a.m., that it was probably referring to the Endeavour's first mission, and I'm not an expert on this, I just quickly looked it up on Wikipedia. On its first mission, it captured and redeployed the standard Intelsat 6 communications satellite. The first African-American woman astronaut, Mae Jemison, was launched into space on the mission STS-47 on September 12th, 1992. So I guess that was the first mission, and so maybe it only lasted a week. I don't know how space shuttle missions work, but that is my guess because this episode aired a week after Endeavour took its first mission, which included the first African-American woman astronaut, Mae Jemison. So that is one way in which these things are a time capsule. It's almost a shame that it doesn't have commercials. When I got good at recording things off the TV, what I got good at was pressing pause on the recording right when the commercial started and then pressing record because I sensed that it was coming back, and so I missed the commercials. But these days, I just love, when that doesn't happen, when I'm watching something and that didn't happen, the commercials are there too because it gives you a sense of where it is. And in this case, there was a big news bulletin. Perhaps it landed on. So this aired on the night before, and it was supposed to land in the middle of the night, but it was landing later in the morning, and because it talks about 8 a.m. starting coverage in the middle of this episode. So anyway, that's just an interesting thing that happened. The season 1, I don't know if they came from ABC or Nickelodeon, but they all ended. The end credits had the instrumental version of the theme song. Season 2, they have that ABC song. So, yeah, that was fun. The episode itself, Dreammaker, for some reason, I have always had it in my head that this must have been one of the climactic episodes, either the end of Season 1 or Season 2. It is the second episode of Season 2, and in it, the porters kind of start experiencing their world comes to the Land of the Lost, and they don't know why. They don't know if there's a portal that opened up and they can get back, or something weird is going on. And this is one of the very weird things of Season 2 that I so enjoy, because they take a long walk. I think it's southeast, or maybe that's from the other episode where they use the television as a compass. Because one of the things that happens is that the television, Kevin is watching the television, I think he's watching some footage that he took, and then it switches over to the Turbo Twins, which I looked up, and there are things called Turbo Twins, but it's not a show like what he was watching where two people spun around like the Wonder Woman TV show, and suddenly they were wearing superhero costumes. But also, the night before that happens, Tom is tossing and turning to the sound of sirens and things happening in the streets. He wakes up and there's a parking ticket on the truck. The truck, by the way, is out of commission for the episode. Otherwise, they'd have driven it, and it would have been more complicated, them escaping ultimately. Krista is also out of commission in a way. She's on a 2-day hunt. She hasn't been in the last couple of episodes, I don't think. I wonder if they were using her sparingly, or I don't know. I wonder. But Stink is there, and so they have Stink in as they go in search of their own world within the land of the lost, and on their way, they meet a dinosaur that looks like Tasha, and I'm not exactly sure why, except maybe it's Tasha's version of seeing it, and it manifesting itself as Tasha's version of them seeing their home, their street, which they eventually do. They arrive at this abandoned suburban street. They see exactly their house, and they go in and they interact with the things, the electronics. Stink kind of tickles himself with an electronic toothbrush. Kevin unwraps an ice cream treat and offers it to Tasha, who is about to eat fake fruit. Stink ultimately does try to eat the fake fruit and doesn't like it. So that's but they're suspicious. I mean, and Tom, Stink, and Tasha are more suspicious of this house than Kevin and Annie. Kevin and Annie just run in. They're the human kids, and they're excited to be home. But they don't stay there. They go back to the treehouse for the night, and then they come back in the morning. And I don't know if the plan in Tom's head, or if they were thinking we'll ultimately move back here and take the truck, or maybe there's a sense that they just felt more like the treehouse was home and what they go back to at the end of the day than their house at this point. Let's see. So when they go back, the phone rings. And again, it's an abandoned, creepy suburban street. The phone rings, and it is the voice of their mother. And when Annie, so that's what she tells, the voice tells Kevin, it's your mother. Why she'd be on the phone and not in the house, I don't know. But again, probably just a more creepy thing. If she's actually there, she can't be mysteriously haunting them. When Annie gets on the phone, she starts cackling, and Annie hangs up, and that's got to be a very terrifying thing. The parent that you thought was dead calls on the phone for one thing, but then it exposes the ghoulish side. This is when the house starts to attack them. The fridge and the fridge goes after Tasha. The garage, first the wall, and then the garage door goes after Tom. The couch stands on end. The chairs all move toward, and they sound like dinosaurs as they're moving toward the porters. Stink did not go back to the house, but somehow senses that he should when he arrives at the treehouse and the porters are not there, and he manages to help save them, get Tom out of the garage door. Tom is stuck in the garage door, and then Scarface appears, and he starts attacking a car that's down the street in a very Jurassic Park-like way. And I think that, let's see, Jurassic Park was the next year, I think. Jurassic Park, well, the movie was the following year, 1993. So maybe but it was based on a book that came out earlier. So, but maybe the Land of the Lost T-Rex attacking a car thing was based on the book. That also ended up in the movie that was based on the book because it was based on the book. And Scarface also runs more like the T-Rex in the Jurassic Park movie in this one. But again, it was made before the movie. So, but again, this was around the time that I think the reason the dinosaurs look the way they do in Jurassic Park is because more science was being done around how they actually looked and moved. So that may have affected this as well. Ultimately, it is discovered that, well, for one thing, Scarface turns out not to be real. Um, Turns out to be a dream or a vision like the house. But it is revealed they go into a cave nearby to escape from Scarface, and they discover that it's a big crystal-based machine, apparently built by the Sleestaks, as they say, as a weapon. And we know that Shung has some kind of mind control thing and uses his crystal dagger to control minds and to make people see things. But that's that episode, and I guess they decided that furniture was more scary than dinosaurs. I don't know. It's weird, but I like weird, and I like. I mean, it's not the most consequential episode in the full arc. Very few of these episodes are, but it's enjoyable. It's fun, and but it's I think a lot weirder and darker than maybe is good for kids. But I've been saying that about all sorts of shows, all sorts of episodes for kids. Anyway, the next one, Opah. Now, Opah is Stink's grandfather. And so we learn more about the Sleestaks and the Pakuni and their history. They seem to be the only non-dinosaur natives of this land, the Pakuni and the Sleestaks. And the Sleestaks used the Pakuni to mine for crystals and worked them to death, literally. So that's how Stink's parents died, and Stink had thought that Opah had died as well, and Stink escaped. So the arrival of Opah, who doesn't come to Stink, he comes to the Porters because Kevin has been growing these melons, and they are good food for a traveling old Pakuni. So Kevin takes Tasha out to pick the melons, finds that they've been stolen, and then Opah appears, and Kevin and Tasha get scared. But then Annie arrives, and Annie knows to say Akubane, which is Pakuni language, and it's also how Stink and Krista say hello. And so that, shows the old ape man creature that these are not necessarily dangerous people. They know the language. You can potentially communicate with them. And when Kevin says to somebody to go get Stink, we need Stink, because obviously they're the same species, Opah recognizes that as well. And so that's when Stink arrives. That's when we get the background. And meanwhile, again, the truck is out of commission, and apparently the truck doesn't run as well on crystals as the flashlights and TVs, because Tom has to go find oil for the truck, and he talks about refining it. Now, I don't know oil, but they seem to be able to do a lot there. They built a basketball hoop and made a basketball, but he seems to think that he can refine the oil. Maybe he can, but I don't know how realistic that would be. It might. It seems to me like another thing that maybe they shouldn't be able to do, like have so much makeup. But that's his side quest while Opah is staying in the treehouse, and Opah gives him a kind of, I guess it's a vial of some kind of liquid for good luck. And it comes in handy because when Tom is at the oil pit, some tentacles come out of the oil pit and wrap themselves around his around one arm and one leg, and he sprinkles the liquid on them, and it starts to burn them, and he is released. In the meanwhile, we learn a bit more about Pakuni culture, and it turns out that Opah is disappointed in Stink because Stink has become very human-like. He's adopted the human language. I don't remember his specific criticisms. It might not be. He might not have very many specific criticisms, but he says that Stink is a bad Paku. And that is something that Stink then has to deal with. And he also pulls out a wooden flute and plays a melody that's, I think dissonant is the word, and the humans don't like it. I like it. Stink has no problem with it. Tasha really loves it. But it's interesting music, again, for a children's show because it's not immediately pleasing. It's not easily pleasing. So there's that as well. But it results in, I guess, the humans, when Opah decides to take a nap, the humans hide the flute in the rafters. But later on, Scarface arrives. And Scarface really attacks the treehouse. And I guess the electric shock that he received in episode 1 has worn off because he really goes after the treehouse trying to get people out. And Opah starts asking, "Where's the flute? I need the flute." And they have no idea why he's asking for the flute, and they don't give it to him. But Scarface shakes the treehouse such that the flute falls out of the rafters and rolls out of the treehouse. Stink goes to get it, and then almost gets eaten by Scarface, but is able to throw the flute up to Opah, who plays the flute, and Scarface runs away. So that is the climax of the episode. And the wind down is more approval from Opah for Stink, for being brave and going after the flute. And Stink going after the flute is one of those classic motion capture adventure kind of problems where the speed of the monster is such that versus the speed of the actual humans interacting with it is such that it gets really close, and you start to think, well, Scarface would have gotten Stink if this were really going on, but for the plot's sake, he didn't. And Stink does some neat little acrobatic things, but it was still cool, and it's a nice kind of humanizes Stink by introducing more Pakuni and more Pakuni culture. And Stink plays the flute, his own version of the song, after as Opah is leaving after an emotional goodbye. After again, Opah apparently is able to get oil from trees, which is weird. And not only is he able to, but he's already set it up, I guess, on trees around the place, and so that's how the porters then will have oil. And as I said, Stink plays him off. So that's not as weird as the Dreammaker one, but still something I like. I like the music. I like the giving Stink more of a background because Krista is obviously human. The porters are human. And we think that Krista probably comes from the 60s or the 70s and arrived in the Land of the Lost from there, whereas the humans arrived in the 80s and 90s. But it gives Stink more. We learned that the Pakuni, they have music, they have instruments, they are crafts people. So I like it. Interesting. So let's see. The next couple of episodes, The Gladiators, I have very little memory of that one, and Life's a Beach, which is I don't know if Krista's in the Gladiators one, but she's definitely in Life's a Beach. So, as Krista would say, peace and love.